Greetings to all. We would like to thank you for joining us for the 30th edition of the Annual Investment Meeting webinar series. My name is Karen Bizon, Investor Relations for AIM, and I'll be your MC for today. The Annual Investment Meeting is the largest investment platform in the world. An initiative of the UAE Ministry of Economy, AIM has been promoting a healthier global economy by linking investment opportunities to fast-growing economies under 6 key pillars: foreign direct investment, foreign portfolio investment, small and medium enterprise, startups, and future cities, with a special event, One Belt, One Road. We would like to thank our multilateral partner, Islamic Corporation, for the development of the private sector for sponsoring today's webinar. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. If you experience any issues with your audio or video during the webinar, just refresh your browser and that should take care of everything. We would suggest using Chrome, Firefox, Safari, or Microsoft Edge. And if you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into the question tab in the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. So if you like a specific question, vote for it under questions tab so we can address it to our speakers. The topic for today's webinar is Startups, Globalization, Go-to-Market Strategy in the Pandemic Era. This session will discuss pandemic impact on the global economy and startup ecosystems from a local perspective. What should we do as startups when restrictions eases and how to be prepared for the second wave? And what best go-to-global strategies, pivot to win, go digital, strategic partnerships, and collaboration. In today's webinar, we are joined by our guest of honor, His Excellency Adnan Al-Noorani, Chairman of the Board of the Private Office of Sheikh Ahmed bin Faisal Al-Qassimi. Your Excellency, I would like to invite you for your opening remarks.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adnan Al-Noorani, and I'm the chairman of the board of the private office of Sheikh Ahmed bin Faisal Al-Qassimi. I'm glad and happy and honored to be in this event. As you know, the United Arab Emirates, he make a great job in the, let's say, in the pandemic time to help everyone and to grow the business. And let's say we were in the Middle East, the first country to achieve, to open everything for the people that they can move and be more freely in the Corona time. I want to give my big thanks to Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum and Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan for their efforts to help our country to grow and to help almost 200 nationalities that they are joining in United Arab Emirates family. And
I guess Excellency is having some technical issues, but anyhow, thank you so much, Your Excellency, for the opening remarks. Now I would like to welcome Mr. Marcin Lapa, CEO and member of the board of the private office of Sheikh Ahmed bin Faisal Al-Qassimi. He's the royal and government advisor in the area of international business strategy. Serial and successfully entrepreneur, founder, and investor in many global startups, innovator and patent owner in the area of utilities, IoT, big data, cloud, and a mobility expert with proven track of successful project. He will be joined by the panel of experts. And so, Mr. Marcin, the stage is yours.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. This is Marcin speaking. Yes, I have this honor to be the CEO of the member of the board of the private office of Sheikh Ahmed bin Faisal Al Qassimi. And during today's webinar, I would have a chance to moderate our discussion with our great international panelists from all over the globe. That was the idea behind today's discussion, to have people from all over the globe, from all continents, from different experience, different fields of the expertise. So now I would like everyone from our great panelists and my friends to introduce themselves in the short way, and from there we will take and start a discussion. So Helen, first, could you please a little bit introduce yourself? Helen is there. I can't see Helen. So Barbara, please.
So my name is Barbara. I'm founder of and CEO of Interhash, a global platform that connects together brands, top global brands with influencers. We operate right now on more than 80 markets, having offices in 10 places all over the world. We also do business in Middle East. And we are probably the biggest global influencer marketing company in terms of inventory.
Thank you so much. Jerry.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I think good morning. I'm Jerry Azarkman, a founder and the CEO of Star Financials. We are building platforms for the future of retail globally for under market, especially market of expat. What we call them in California, immigrant, we call it expat in GCC. And we specialized in helping them financially to grow and put their standard of living higher.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Miroslav, how about you?
Hi, Marcin, and good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Miroslav Dimitrov. I'm the head of ACPIO Foundry Berlin. And what is ACPIO? So we're part of the corporate strategy unit of ACP. And our mission is to build the next innovation ecosystem around ACP, meaning that we partner with early stage companies from all around the globe. We have 8 global locations. So I'm leading the one in Berlin, but we also have presence in North America, in APJ, and in EMEA, of course. And yeah, we're looking for the next, I would say, brightest stars in the B2B software as a service space so that we can partner and help them scale with us.
Thank you so much. Dr. Masuka, please.
Thank you very much. I'm Anxious Jongwe Masuka. I'm chairman of the University of Zimbabwe, which is the oldest and largest university. I'm also chairman of Buy Zimbabwe, an organization that advocates for local production and priming for competitive exports. Currently, I'm also the chief executive officer of the Zimbabwe Agricultural Society, which is the largest and old member-based agricultural organization in Zimbabwe. My interests span, of course, forestry, agriculture, mining, and the environment. So I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much. Helen.
Hi. So thank you, everyone. My name is Helen Tong, and I'm a barrister and senior associate at Hamdan, and I'm also a founder of Space 20. The background is I'm a barrister lawyer training, and I've got experience working with startups. I'm very excited now in the UAE, specifically because of the developments in space, and also with the growth of innovative ideas and investments. So it's a very exciting time. Thanks.
All right, cool. Helen, I guess if you can make your microphone a little bit louder or something, because I'm not sure if it's only me, but your voice is breaking a little bit. All right, guys, cool. Thank you so much for your introduction. So first of all, I would like to say a big thank you to His Excellency Mr. Adnan Al Noorani for introduction about our country and all activities that the royal families is doing here to make UAE successfully during this difficult time. And indeed, we are so much blessed here in the UAE with the strong leadership that this pandemic time, we are all impacted by the pandemic, of course, but here in the EU, at least we were struggling, I think, a little bit less than in other countries. And there was one proof for that one this week. The community survey results were presented, and 88% of the people in the UAE, they declare the high level of dissatisfaction from all government activities during this time, which is the higher in the world, actually, 88%. So this is something very much impressive. On the other hand, like us as a private office of Sheikh Ahmed bin Faisal Al Qassimi, we of course identify the impacts on the businesses, on the entrepreneurships, and on the startup ecosystem, of course. But what we see, the impact is both negative, of course, it's there, but also there's a positive impact. And this is a chance that the startups needs to take to be successfully in this difficult time. So for example, what we identify here is that there are top 3 sectors that are running quite well, no matter what, in the UAE and the GCC region, which is, of course, like always, real estate and the construction market. But the second interesting thing is that fintech solutions are going digital, and the fintech is growing heavily last months, and many investment rounds were closed. And of course, all related to the food and beverage security and food production. This is also, especially during this difficult time, the most important segment of the business that it's covered. So, of course, all of us agree that the impact is there no matter what. But I'd like now to ask you guys, how is the impact in your local startups community or in entrepreneurships discussion and things, from the global perspective up to your local? So Helen, could you please, what do you think about this impact from your side?
Well, thank you so much. I think, as we all know, and it might be stating the obvious, is we're all going online. The fact that we're having this webinar like this is probably going to be the norm from now on, if it's not already known by everyone. From my end, we're finding meeting with clients, we're finding that, you know, whilst there are some conferences being delayed, certainly people are trying to get together online as much as possible. And if you talk about in terms of communication, when you talk to people, particularly, you know, those that work in the office, most would say, you know, it's a clear 9 to 5, but when they're working from home, it seems like they do more, they're more productive, things feel more efficient. When we talk about the global, and here I guess is mainly my observations of online and me currently in the UAE, is that the investment appetite is certainly there. And in fact, from our firm, we've been invited by under the auspices of the Prime Minister in Emirates Tower to do a series of lectures, which include fintech, which include space and all this. And I think every country, every startup would also be thinking, how can I think outside of the box and be innovative and offer their services, their goods in a way that maybe previously they have not thought about. A good example you mentioned about food and beverage is the uptake on delivery, the uptake on deliveries. Who would have thought that they will become a booming business when during, you know, COVID-19 deliveries are up by 200%, you know? So I think business models will change primarily online, and even sectors, new sectors that could be, you know, I say we're living in the future now because of COVID-19. And by the way, I'm looking at it from a positive angle, where, you know, you've got developments that talk about, you know, VR systems, you know, AV sets. That's all possible now because you think, well, families want to connect, they want to talk to each other, and they want a sense of closeness. And, you know, I mean, short of seeing each other face to face, I think startups that really try and fundamentally try and allow us to have the chance to sort of normalize things will actually have a great possibility, you know, to you know, grow their business. So yeah, that's my take on it for now.
All right, Helen, for me, you are always a girl from the out of space and all those space future. So we know that the UAE Hope mission just started. Was there any impact of those COVID in all those spaceship program around the globe?
Yeah, well, I don't know specifically. I mean, obviously it was successful. What I did notice is because of social media, I think everyone turned to it. So, you know, it was broadcast online, you could access it on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and you could see people liking and sharing. And I think, you know, it's a very good example where, like I'm a space enthusiast, and I'm sure most of you are, that, we can actually still enjoy the things and get excited about things, despite the fact that we're remote, or working remotely. And I think everything that we know about in technology is being, tested, as it were. And I think it's, from a positive, as I said, technological point of view, it's a very exciting time.
All right, cool. Thank you so much, Helen. Barbara, how's our country, how's Poland these days, and what was the impact in there?
Well, I think that in Poland, the impact was pretty heavy for the economy, and it hasn't been fully measured yet. Fortunately, from my personal point of view, we are a company working in social media, and social media consumption grew on average more than 30%, but among millennials and Gen Z even more. So it's not that tangible, but definitely I think for Europe it was, for Poland, for Germany, for the UK, it impacted economy very much. It was visible. Lockdown was something completely new. Even I could have see the difference between our teams in Europe and, let's say, our teams in APAC region, because APAC region has been impacted by some kind of more challenging situations like earthquakes and so on more often. So people were, I think, not as shocked as lockdown. Of course, COVID happened for the first time worldwide, but I saw that APAC region was, I think, less shocked than Europe.
All right. Okay. But the company like yours, you are the social media ninja, and company like yours, or your friends from the same industry, how you feel about this pandemic time? Things change in there?
Yeah, of course, change a lot. I think in a long-term view, we see that it's a great opportunity for us. Absolutely great, because people look for connections, for relations online even more than they used to before. People go out less frequently, which also turns them more into social media, and they appreciate much more recommendations coming from their friends in social media. So I think in the long-term vision, it's an opportunity, but in the short-term, from the short-term angle, it's not that sweet, because we are also depending on marketing budgets. And marketing budgets, especially in our case, but not only in our, even if I talk to my friends working in agencies and so on, at the beginning, brands just holded their budgets and they didn't know, first of all, if they should spend or not. And if they do creation, how they should do it appropriately. Because if people should not go outside, then how even influencers should communicate the product. And also the supply chain was different for many brands. So I think for the entire industry, for the short-term vision, it was a little bit challenging, especially at the beginning. But I think for the long-term vision, it can help us grow a lot.
All right. Okay, that's good at the end. Great. Thank you, Barbara. Let's jump into the sunny California. Jerry, what this global pandemic has an impact for California, LA? What's your point of view? You are muted, Jerry. Please just click the mic. All right.
All right. So in California, we had two issues. The first issue was the pandemic, which affected in the beginning very negative, like anywhere else around the globe. Secondly, we had the disturbances that affected very much and affected businesses. So together was very negative, but any situation like that creates also opportunities. We definitely get out of it in a very good way. Thanks to the government, there was a PPP program that helped businesses. We invested that money to development. We developed additional tools in a faster mood, and we brought people back, but in a high-tech area, in the artificial intelligence and so on, that we use in order to improve our tools. So for us, we took advantage of that opportunity, and it was really very good for us.
Okay, so how about, let's say, the fintech ecosystem in there, and particularly you take some advantage of this situation, or?
Definitely, the community that we target is community of underbanked, a community that the need of financial is very much even more extended way now with the pandemic in their needs for, and beside having the issue of the pandemic, is a lot of them owe money. We have account receivable, large account receivable, that we're going to refinancing mood and helping that community. And the thanks that we have from them is received very well. Using that in opportunity to revive and to create additional business, additional sell online. We develop also a different platform online. So we're moving everything online, and through that, we're creating sales online that financed by communities. They cannot get loans from banks. They cannot get a credit card and pay payment. So to develop all those tools in such a short time, it was amazing that we succeeded, and we're still developing it.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Dr. Masuka, how's the local impact in the southern part of the Africa and in the Zimbabwe particularly?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
For Africa, as you know, it's predicted that the economic impact will be a contraction generally across the continent of somewhere in the region of 5%. For Southern Africa, it's not an exception. All countries have been impacted very negatively. Fortunately, the death toll has not been as high, but we are now in the middle of winter, so we're seeing infections rising every day. In particular for Zimbabwe, the economy last year contracted by about 7% because of drought, because of a cyclone, and now this COVID pandemic is making things worse. So as you probably know, inflation here is very high and things are difficult. And specifically in the agricultural sector, companies have been focusing on how do we protect the workforce? How do we ensure supply chain optimization, because supply and demand lines have been affected? How do you ensure that financially in the short term you are able to survive? How do you build on the contactless customer interfaces? So we see that digitization is sprung to the fore, and a lot of companies are now going online to try and explore additional market opportunities. I also see quite a lot of companies that I interact with looking at how they can improve the internal efficiencies themselves. So I think that's we are in a spot where COVID has caused major disruptions, but I see that there are also opportunities that beyond COVID will actually be performing normally in companies. Probably those that are able to move and quickly take to the stage will ensure that they will be able to grow. I see also companies increasingly looking for opportunities for markets, some of them even exploring into the GCC. So despite the bad aspects, COVID has also brought with it opportunities, and I think that's the space that we ought to concentrate on.
All right, but last week, curfew, it doesn't help at all, right? And it's an additional impact because of that, or in agriculture, especially sector, which count on you to deliver us the food and production.
The agriculture sector in Zimbabwe is the biggest. It employs 70% of the people in Zimbabwe. So it's a key sector. However, it is regarded as an essential service. So it is exempt from all the lockdown regulations. So are many other industries. the curfew that was brought in last week mandates that there is no movement between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. And we hope that that will assist in trying to contain the cases. The cases in Zimbabwe are actually confined to the two major cities, the capital city and the second largest, fortunately. But agriculture is continuing, and I see that in various areas, horticulture is actually increasing, and that is the disruption of the supply chain that people are trying to look at. How do we ensure that despite the COVID pandemic, agricultural produce can still move from farms to towns, and also ensuring that produce can still be exported. So I think that's the challenge that we are in currently.
All right. Thank you so much for your view from the southern part of Africa. How about the Germany these days, Miroslav?
Yeah, that's indeed a very good question. Well, I would say that it was very hard in the beginning, right? If you think about EU, it was, I think, of course, came as a surprise, right? And EU has, I would say, a history of dealing with these kind of crises a little bit independently, right? Meaning that every single country has a slightly different tactic or strategy, right? On the one hand side, I would say that probably the biggest experiment that we're now seeing, right, in what is really the best measure or what could be perceived as the best measure. Germany, in particularly, I find, at least from my point of view, handled the crisis very well, right? In terms of crisis management, it was very transparent. It was very clear what the government is trying to achieve, right? The measures that they took, I think they were, of course, kind of from time perspective, they were on point, right? And it was very calm, right? There was no panic or hysteric, it was very clear. Now, if you think about the business, of course, there was, I mean, the industry in Germany predominantly predominantly automotive industry was heavy hit, right? A lot of factories were shut down, right? And they were not prepared to go in fully digital. And I think, now thinking about startups versus corporates, right? So corporates were not, let's say, especially in Germany, they were not really prepared for that digital shift, like, overnight. So that put enormous stress on the IT departments, right? For example, a company like ours, it was easy for us, I would say. I think probably 85% of the company moved digitally and started working from home within a week, and it was no major disruptions. It was like business as usual, right? We even had cases where implementations were done fully virtual now in the last quarter, right? Which is, and Marcin, I think you can relate to that. That was actually not something that you would expect, right, in a business like ours. So I would say that it's digital businesses. They were kind of poised to win in that case, right? And now the good question, of course, is okay, but which industries are going to rebound quickly, right? And which industries are going to face more challenges down the road? And of course, then as you pointed out, Marcin, fintech, e-commerce, consumer products, these pharma, for example, these are industries that it's kind of like Christmas time for them, right? Meaning that they see really an explosion of demand, right? And they have then different problems like supply chain, like some of the other panelists mentioned. So that's kind of one set of challenges, right? And then you see other businesses like automotive, and then that they have to deal with totally different reality, right? Like furloughs, keeping employees actually on payroll, right? And closing factories and trying to rebound now as the measures come down. So if you ask me, it's really a couple of sectors are exploding, and then the other ones are kind of trying to figure out what is the next move. And then all of this, I think, is a great opportunity for startups right now, because they were designed to work remotely from day one, right?
Exactly. Like this is what I also like to know, because you are so much close with the startups. This is your role as a head of SAP.io. So what those startups were looking for the last few months when they had to change everything, actually, even the SAP.io program, which supposed to be on-site, it went to the digital. So even maybe the startups' needs has changed. They still, let's say, looking for mentorship, or now because of the crisis, they are looking more for the investment part. How do you feel about that? This close to the startups?
Yeah, for us it was very funny because we actually had to basically on the day that the program was starting, that was 4th of March, we received the guidance from the board that we need to cancel all in-person events, right, until further notice. So basically we were in one, physically in one location, we met each other, and then we had to go fully virtual. But to answer to your question, I think the needs are more or less the same, right? Minus the, let's say, nice to have parts, meaning that, all of the companies that we're working with are right now laser focused on their core customers, right? And I think the biggest thing that was kind of reoccurring during the crisis was, they were trying to repurpose, I would say, and reevaluate their unique selling proposition, right? Meaning that they wanted to go and they wanted to align themselves with the must-haves for their customers, or let's say with the core processes or core costs that they can optimize, right? And I think that's the major outcome. Everything that was really, I think the best word is like nice to have, right? Everything that is not core or not perceived as strategic right now is just not happening.
All right. Yeah, well, this is the German startup ecosystem. It's quite strong, as let's say UAE ecosystem is strong as well. And the interesting thing that I noticed during this time, here in the GCC, we close more financial round for round A and round B rather than the seed. So it means that the investors are more keen to invest in a little bit more major companies that are on the market and they were able to survive this difficult time rather than take a risk and go into the seed round, for example. So this is my observation from the last months. And of course, like you said, e-commerce, of course, digitalization of the sales and the whole supply chain, fintech, edutech, healthcare, of course, and all around the healthcare and environment was there. But now if we go one step further, and in some countries, the restrictions are eased a little bit. And in some countries, unfortunately, like Zim or Southern Part Africa, the restrictions are still there. But how startups should prepare themselves, let's say, when these restrictions are not there, or on the other hand, hopefully not, but what if the second wave will come for the autumn, and what should happen in that time? I would start this time with Dr. Masuka. What do you think? How the Zim will be prepared when the restriction will be eased, and hopefully not, but what if the second wave will come?
Everyone plans for the West, but hopes for the best.
Exactly.
So we think that maybe past winter, the West will be over. And as we go into summer, that's our rainfall season, then we can ramp up productivity. But the government has just announced an $18 billion package for existing companies to access, and lots of companies have applied. Unfortunately, that excludes all startups. So it is understandable that in this environment, customers will want to spend less and on prioritized expenditure, that businesses will likely not invest and will probably look for generating efficiencies. But I think it is a unique opportunity for companies that look at the landscape closely to see opportunities that could be emerging. I look at the horticulture sector in Zimbabwe, for example, and I see quite a lot happening in terms of new companies that are seeking opportunities for exports, because there is certainly a niche that they can fill in. I also see a lot of companies that are looking at import substitution, because COVID-19 has disrupted supply chains. So it is an opportunity for startups to go into import substitution. I see quite a lot of activity in the pharmaceutical sectors, for example, and so that's a growth area. We also see quite a lot in the cereals. Zimbabwe imports quite a lot of cereals. So government has actually just come up with a strategy that incentivizes local production. So it's an opportunity for new business entrants into those sectors. And with it, if you look at the value chain, it means that there will also be opportunities on the value chain in terms of processing, value addition, and beneficiation. So although we think that the pandemic will be with us for a very long time, and that the next normal will be living with it. I think there are opportunities that are inherent in all this.
All right, but once the Zim and southern part of Africa will be, let's say, the reopen, any specific advice or plan for those businesses to bounce back, like maybe go international? What do you think?
I think companies are focusing for now on survival, and they are saying, but for the long term, they want to build a resilience in that company so that these episodic shocks, hopefully, they'll be able to ride them. But in the long term, every company looks for growth. So I look at the three aspects: that first is survival while building resilience, and then you pivot for perhaps growth. And to do so, I think we need to look at the various processes. Either internally, you need to build the efficiencies that are required. Go into major digital transformation. I've just completed a strategic framework for our own company to say we need digital transformation in every aspect of our operations. We need to build a contactless customer engagement, building a virtual customer experience for all the products and services that we provide. And we see that production will go into modernization, looking at technology and everything else. So I think that's the space that we'll be in.
All right, thank you so much. Miroslav, what do you think? The second wave will come to Europe and it will impact again? Because right now what I see in the media, like in Poland or in Germany, across the Europe, the restrictions are eased a little bit. But are you preparing as a SAP who is planning upfront for something like the second wave?
Yeah, actually, if you check, for example, Deutsche Welle in the past 2 days, they're saying that the second wave is already here, right? And there is a spike in new infections all around Europe, actually. And you see, for example, Austria bringing back some of the requirements, some of the measures that they took during the lockdowns, right? Meaning masks are now, they are advising their people to wear masks pretty much everywhere, right? So you would say that people are actually bracing themselves for a second wave. But I fully agree with the doctor. I mean, in the end of the day, we need to adjust, right? We need to accept that this is going to stay, right? And then for a while, at least in the foreseeable probably months to come. So you need to adjust your strategy. And I think on the question, like, how can startups benefit or what should they plan for? I think they should really double down on their current customers, right? And especially for software as a service companies, for B2B companies, definitely I think that's on mind or on top of mind for everyone. Really expanding your current customers, trying to serve them as best as you can, right? Because we all know that right now the cost of acquiring new customer is significantly high, right? So probably that would be the best strategy right now. And if you are able to, of course it depends on your current situation, but if you're able to reposition your product or solution and focus on the industries that are poised to grow right now, the ones that we mentioned, I think that would be a winning strategy, right? Naturally, you move faster than a corporate, so you would be better suited to actually satisfy the demand. Again, depending on the product.
I saw that you guys, as a SAP IO, you are still running a lot of programs for acceleration the startups. Those programs are now more focused on, let's say, the COVID-19 solutions. Do you think you will go on site with those programs and more startups will come, or still we will continue only, let's say, the digital way and still the programs will run well?
Yeah, that's also an interest. So if you ask me, I would love to go back to in-person mode, right? Because I personally believe that the relationships and the rapport that you build, right, cannot be done virtually, right? But to be honest, no, we plan now to do fully virtual programs, at least the next 2 programs, right? Meaning until half of 2021. And if you ask me, and I was a skeptic, I must admit, I was skeptic in the beginning, but now I see really the benefits, because when we did now a fully virtual program, we were able to work with startups from around the globe, right? Meaning that, you know, if you don't really spend days traveling to the location where your meeting is, right? Then you can focus on much more things, right? And meaning that we achieved actually much better results having fully virtual programs than compared to on-site ones, right? Because then you don't really have the how to say, you don't really have to plan your time. You have better reach, or you have better opportunities to reach customers, because every C-level right now, person or board is always working from their home, right? So you actually can reach them immediately, right? Versus, you know, planning your meetings months in advance, right? And what is working very interestingly for us is that we see now a lot of demand, for example, in Berlin, for companies from US that want to enter the German market, right? So you would say that for us that has been very beneficial.
All right. So it means no back to the offline and everything stay digital with the SAP.io. That's nice. That's something new. Let's say the new reality is here. All right, Helen, what do you think? Like the startups, how they should prepare for this time when the restriction will be eased, but on the other hand, in some places, like Miroslav said, that the second wave is already there. What should they do?
Yeah. So actually, I'm from Melbourne, and there's already a second wave where we're in the 4th week. So, you know, my thoughts are with my family and everyone that's out there in Melbourne. Interestingly, you may have heard of this. There's a organization called Exo Alliance, which is all about exponential organizations. And so I actually entered, it's like a med tech sort of concept, but doing very quick sprints and thinking of what are the potential startups are there or solutions to the COVID-19. We're talking about maybe 2 months ago or more than that. And one of the things we came up with was on mental health, because in the same way, it doesn't matter if you're poor or rich, COVID-19 affects everyone. So we looked at mental health specifically in very confined spaces. So for example, it could be you, your family, the bedroom. We looked at seafarers, so those are out in shipping, and I heard a few of the speakers here talk about supply chain. And also, of course, for those that are not so obvious, so the doctors and the nurses themselves. We think, you know, they're the people that are sort of and the, you know, the front lines, but then we have people who are, how about the service people in the supermarkets, you know, the car parks. And we always have to remind ourselves that we are lucky because we are able to stay home. But the majority of people probably in this world, they need to eat, they need to work. So it is to a certain extent, you know, when we talk about startups, we talk about, you know, the opportunity to go online and do things online. It really is a luxury. And I think if we look at it from this way, you know, the world looks like a different place. And I think COVID-19 is an opportunity for growth and it's an opportunity for change. I know for a lot of people, they hate change because it's like, you know, what is it, the 4-hour habit, losing weight, you know, and interestingly, talking about med tech, I think a lot of people, at least amongst my contacts, they've taken upon themselves to be more conscious when they eat. You know, so I can see a growth in probably vegetarianism, veganism, you know, people losing weight, you know, in incredible. Of course, you have people gaining weight as well, by the way, during COVID. But I think people are actually more conscious of how they spend their time. You know, am I going to sit here worrying, or am I going to start meditating? You know, am I going to start, you know, so for me, I survived COVID-19 personally because of meditation, talking to friends, and I think there's discussions about CEOs, contacts, high school reunions, you name it. So I think in a funny way, we are isolated in the sense of, you know, the social distancing, but then we are more connected if we know how to use the time and opportunity more properly. And when I say it's change for everyone, absolutely. As a lawyer in our firm, we're seeing people coming to talk about wills. Suddenly everyone's thinking, oh my God, I think I need to write a will now. And then they start talking about, well, what about my employment contract? You know, very simple things, but things about, you know, what are the implications of me, you know, working from home and all this. So I think there's a few levels, and I mean, I know we're focusing on startups, and I think the beauty of COVID-19 is it actually allows us to ask the question of what is important to us. You know, family, friends, or being on a plane as a corporate, you know, 80% flying and meeting, you know, running around the world, but not actually spending quality time with the people that you can love. So I think, particularly when we switch it on its head, when we talk about millennials, I always believe millennials are going to be the ones leading the future. so that, you know, we are very much guided about what technology will be developed from COVID-19. It's wonderful because I think COVID-19, you know, refocuses our mind on what's important. Healthcare is important around the world. You know, for a lot of countries that are concerned about COVID-19, it's not just about the vaccination, it's about, can we even manage the beds in the hospitals? So in some ways, I think it's a good thing, it's a positive thing, because it's putting the values where it ought to be, right? So short of food on the table, clothes to wear, and shelter, you know, and of course, you know, law and order, of course, I think we go back to the basics. And I think for a lot of startups, there's plenty of opportunities to address what we would call, you know, global issues and finding solutions. So I think COVID-19 is almost like, you know, when you know, have an axe that, you know, you discover, you know, this hole in the ground. It's a bit like that, you know, uncovering the real problems in society. So those naysayers of, you know, climate change will suddenly realize actually the air pollution went down because nobody traveled for a few months, you know, or the dolphins coming back to Venice, which is like a miracle, you know. So I think if we keep our eyes and ears peeled in the next few months, we're going to discover more and more things about ourselves as individuals and more about humanity. And then I think quite naturally, the social issues, the you know, societal issues that for a lot of startups that are innovative, they will find a market for themselves. Yeah.
All right. So this is so much true. We come back to the basics as a human being here on the earth. But how about the space, Helen? Give me some more information. I need to know. How about the social distance in there?
So actually, I tell you what, everything we do now on Earth is a step closer to this aspiration for me, seeing, I'm very much along the lines of Elon Musk, by the way, seeing ourselves as interplanetary species. So for example, those working in space agencies, like in Japan, like in Europe, have already been doing scientific experiments on longevity. Okay, for example, if I send these foods or these chemicals or these bacteria up in space, will it last? You know, ironically, COVID-19 is the perfect time to explore space. Can you imagine if we had another pandemic worse than COVID-19? Where should we go? We stay home or we go to a different planet, right? I'm not putting a dystopian view, but I'm looking at the idea of frontier, about the future frontier and how ready are we to embrace these challenges, right? And of course, when we look back at history, there are pandemics, there are issues, and there are psychological and technological developments. But I think it's a real push for those that think, well, you know, we're not ready to embrace, and being in the legal profession is a good example. We're not ready to embrace online webinars. Well, guess what? Everything's online now, including court cases, arbitration, you know, everything. So there's no longer, you know, by default, we are already there. What we're talking about, like particularly, you know, the use of these systems, and of course, there's a lot of developments on AI predictions. So when we talk about human space flight, okay, I'll give you an example, right?
All right.
Human space flight, there's already been developments for a lot of startups talking about if humans cannot sustain going up to space, what about robots? Okay, that's where it gets very interesting. And what about AI systems? So in the same way, if you and I cannot go and do our supermarket shopping, what if we had robots doing it for us? So I'm basically trying to invite people to think more creatively. If there is disasters, let's think creatively, let's think about what we want and need, and use technology and see how it can help us. So actually space for me, it's still there, it's still a viability, and for me, I would love to see in the future, when we talk about space, it's not exciting.
All right.
It's gonna be like going to the supermarket and betting a local bread, really. So I really wish, like, at this point in time, for all the startups that have been hesitant about entering the space sector or considering to really look into it. To give an example, one of the space startups called Planet, who looks at digital imaging, they've already used that to help COVID-19 cases, right? Social distancing, you know, agriculture that was mentioned. So, you know, like all things, we can make use of it. Yeah.
All right. I wonder how the social media will looks like when we go to the space. Barbara, what do you think? How the social media will go after this ease of the restriction, or how the social media are prepared, social media startups are prepared, let's say, for the second wave?
I think we see that people want to keep connection, and everything that is live is the most valuable. That's why also we see a huge growth in terms of live streams. And it's something that, again, APAC has been doing for a long time, and it has been well known as also social selling, for example, and the rest of Western world. It grew significantly, so that internet providers were not 100% ready for that. And I think this is pretty important. I think also people are looking for entertainment more and more. That's why also TikTok was having the best quarter ever in the history, and they became the fastest growing social media platform, even with all the image related problems they are facing right now. They're growing like a crazy. We even did a survey on a couple of thousands of influencers in our database, and everyone who fresh downloaded TikTok, they said they were looking for entertainment and they wanted to create entertainment to survive this time somehow. So I think there are a couple of things. First one is staying connected with friends and staying connected with people, especially with people who are on their own, not with their families. And second is entertainment, because the more difficult to survive it becomes, the more people look for entertaining content. And I think that definitely it will increase. And I think it's good and bad, of course. It all has pros and cons. What I personally see as a little challenge is that even though social media and the way we stay connected improves the efficiency, because we don't need to travel, we don't need to go anywhere. On the other hand, I don't think it improves that much our creativity. I think all the situation makes us all feeling we need to come up with more creative solutions. But in terms of brainstorms, in terms of getting with some new ideas, I think it's much more productive to meet with team members in one room and discuss the idea than to speak on Zoom, because it's just a different way of how we are connected. And I think also in terms of relations, COVID make us having our relations kind of frozen. So the relations that have been developed so far, they're existing and we can maintain them for social media, but I'm not 100% sure if we can create as deep relations without face-to-face meetings and without getting each other, because we're humans and at the end of the day we want to meet with people. And I think if the second wave will come and last pretty long, it can be a great challenge. And this is what Helen also mentioned, that the mental issues can be a big thing, because at the end of the day we want to meet other people, and social media can help us to maintain some relations, to see our parents, for example, to see our friends, but it won't replace it 100%. Even though I work in social media, I'm a big fan of it, and I think it brings lots of good value, it's not 100% the same.
Yes, this is so much true. So we see like the really relation between the people are so much important, but we need a pandemic to realize that. Yes. The food production and agriculture is important, but again, we were waiting a long time for the pandemic to realize all those things. So this is really interesting time for the entrepreneurs, for the startups, and for us as a human being, you know, to rethink the core values, let's say, in our lives, not only in the business, but in our lives itself. But you, Barbara, you are also very much successfully entrepreneur. So far, you are running your business around the globe. So far, with Helen, probably you will go to space soon. But as a businessman that you are running around the globe, have you changed something in your organization to go more global, let's say, or some new ideas, some strategy changes happen in your company?
We're a typical B2B business. And I think for COVID, we've been prepared from the early beginning, because we needed to work kind of remotely due to different time zones and different locations. So we were having Asana, Google Docs, Zoom implemented 3 years before COVID started. But the contact with clients was usually on the meetings, because we work only with top big brands. So usually there were personal relations between our business development teams and some clients teams. And this also led us to to new ways of building relations with clients. So for example, for the 3 months of pandemic, we have created something around probably 20 or 30 webinars, and we were having more than 3,000 clients, targeted clients attending that. And even though webinars were not that big discovery or something completely new, it is a new way for us to explore relations with clients and also find a way to support their business in difficult times. And also we changed the strategy. So we looked at the needs that our clients might have, even though if they don't have budget and if they won't have any budget by the end of the year, we decided we want to do everything possible to support them to meet their goals and share some knowledge and some best practices on our side, to build more long-lasting relations and show them that we are not only when budgets are there, but we are also partners with them in difficult times. Especially that I think that for marketeers, this time was also not easy. It's not that easy, not speaking even about money or budgets, it's not that easy for marketeers to decide how you should communicate during this time, and how you should act. So I think that it was also a very interesting experience for us to find new ways to support clients, build relations, and also to lead our business.
All right. So it looks like that digitalizations of relation come much faster than we were all expecting in all aspects, let's say. And well, I feel like there's somehow no way back. Even I see, let's say, my kids are running around everywhere with all those iPhones, tablets, and things. And even for the young, new generations, this digitalization is like obvious. They are living in this digital era right now. Not like us, that we need a digital transformation to adjust ourselves. They are already in. All right, so digitalization is one of the strategy that we discuss a lot today. Let's say some ideas of the having new relation or building the new collaboration. And for example, like Dr. Masuka mentioned about some pivot to win situation in all those businesses. So how to decide which strategy is the best, or let's say maybe we should combine them all together and implement in our startups, in our businesses to find the new way of making a business at the end. Unfortunately, Jerry is gone. I tried to reach him in the same time, but Miroslav, what do you think about all those digitalization strategy and let's say this new way of working when we think to go global?
Yeah, well, I would say that I fully agree with Barbara on this one, right? Because I think COVID really showed, and let's say made all of us more how to say, more humble, yes. Right? So it was kind of a humbling experience. You realize that, you know, you're not invincible, right? Your company is not invincible. Even if you were kind of before, let's say in January, you were planning to open 5 factories, all of a sudden you're thinking about whether you'll be alive, you know, in 6 months. I mean, alive as a company, but also, you know, alive as a human being, right? So I think it made us really more open to you know, to other people and different point of views. And all of a sudden, when you hear a crazy idea right now, you know, probably 6 months ago, you would dismiss it on the spot, right? And right now, you're like, you know what, let's think about it, right? I mean, let's take some time, probably let's take 15 minutes, evaluate this, whether, you know, this could work for us. So I think, of course, this is a huge opportunity. Now, speaking about business and startups, I think one trend that I'm seeing now in Europe, right, which is probably not so true in US, is that investors are looking for more profitable companies, right? So they're like a little bit now risk averse, right? And they're trying to see and really assess, okay, would you be able to generate revenues in the short term versus, you know, trying to grow at all costs, you know, and waiting probably 10 years for a return, right? So that's one. thing that I see, and therefore you need to now take that into consideration in your startup and in your company, right? Like, what is your cost of acquisition of customers, and how fast can you go, in being, how fast can you go and show profits, right? And operate like a real company, which for me means that probably companies would let's say not stop, but let's say delay a little bit the growth plans, right? Again, focus on the current customers, focus on increasing their share of wallet and serving those customers better, turning them into success stories, and really having them as advocates for their own product and solutions. And I see this with the companies that we're supporting. We had numerous cases where the customers that they're serving were the best advocates that you could say that they have, right? It was much better than any webinar or marketing pamphlet that you can create, right? And then this leads me to the second point that you need to consider if you are a startup right now, is really how do you engage with your customer? Because right now there are so many webinars, right? There's so many pieces of content being created, and the noise is really huge, right? So if what we're doing, for example, in our team is we're spending more time on preparing our engagement with customers, meaning that instead of just showing up for a meeting, let's say with 1 hour preparation and trying to do a discovery call with a customer, we're doing this discovery on our own before the meeting, right? Days before the meeting. And when we go on that meeting, we try to validate our assumptions with the customers. And what I've seen is that they really like this, right? Because in the end of the day, you value their time, right? And you're trying to really see, okay, is my understanding of your business correct? Is my understanding of your needs correct? And how we can move forward. And then, of course, the third point is, if you assume that we cannot travel for the next 6 or 12 months, like, why would you spend now time talking to me versus, for example, my competitors, right? And that's, again, before we jump on that meeting, meaning that you need to be very careful on how you approach your customers, and what is it, the value that you think that you can deliver to them. And this needs to be really summarized very well, very briefly, very shortly. And I think, from sales perspective, that's the way that we operate, for example, in our team.
All right. So this digital new relation with the customer is one, but on the other hand, those startups need to build a new digital relation with the investors as well. So let's say from the last few weeks, we have one great examples from the startup IO, San Francisco. The hoteliers just closed the investment round. The second one, Agranimo from the Berlin, they have a lot of open discussion to close the round. Do you think like this new digital relation with the investors make it more difficult to close the deal, or it might be a little bit easier?
Well, I think it would be, again, that's my humble point of view, right? I think it would be difficult to bring international investors right now, right? Meaning like those that are, let's say, far away from you. So if you're, based in Berlin, probably it would be very hard now to secure investors from US, because what I see from my, friends in my network in the VC world, they're of course looking right now first and foremost in their current portfolio companies, trying to support them, trying to reserve as much cash as possible for follow-on investments there. That's first. And then second, they're trying to invest now, let's say, in companies that they can literally go to their offices, right? So you would be, I mean, at least again, that's what I see. They're a little bit more focused, let's say, locally now, speaking about Germany, speaking about, Berlin, instead of now, trying to, let's say, invest in Croatia or invest in Russia or somewhere else. And I think that's now a good opportunity to really connect with the local investors ecosystem, right?
All right.
And again, especially if your model, if your product is, is perceived as mentioned as core to the business, right? As really helping those businesses kind of navigate the COVID situation. And I'll give you another example from our portfolio companies. There is a company called ZK Systems, right? They just also closed their seed round. And what was very interesting is that, last year when they were having these conversations, and what they do is they help machine manufacturers to move from, one-off sale of machine and like a prepaid sale of machine to really pay as you go. So meaning that, if you have a rotation machine or an elevator or whatever, you start paying as you go, as you use the machine, right? Instead of really investing 15 million, let's say, in a Bosch machine in advance. Now, 1 year ago, that was kind of, people were saying, what, we probably have like 5 to 10 years before this really goes mainstream. And all of a sudden, where companies are cash constrained, right? Like pay as you go becomes, you know what, we can probably do this tomorrow, right? We need to do it tomorrow so that we also serve our customers better. So I think, this is a good example of how quickly things can change, right? And how you can reposition your startup to benefit from the current situation.
All right, cool. This is fantastic. Agranimo is agriculture startup. So, Dr. Masuka, what do you think? Like, which of those strategies should be implemented in, let's say, the agriculture business or in agro-tech areas to give them a chance to be successfully, and on the other hand, to give us a way to receive our food in the future?
Thank you. I see quite a lot in Zimbabwe, a lot of informal businesses. As you know, Zimbabwe is 60% informal. So the challenge has been only formal businesses can operate. So there's been an explosion in terms of the numbers of informal businesses registering to become formal so that they can enter the business space. So I see that as a great, great opportunity. And one business opportunity is the aggregation of product. Where supply chains have been disrupted, and if you create a database, a platform on which, for example, farmers are able to log in and then say, I have this product, I'm producing this at this stage, it will be ready then, and you aggregate for a particular market, hopefully that will also provide an opportunity for the farmers themselves to be able to reduce the cost of selling, while also ensuring that their product can enter a more lucrative market. So that's one area that people are currently exploring in Zimbabwe. So again, it's hinged on a robust digital platform that is able to aggregate these products real time, that ensures that the farmer gets an improved value, and that ensures that product gets to the market in the desired condition. But it also has opportunities for financing. Financing for the farmers themselves to be able to produce more of a better quality while linking them to better markets.
All right. But also your university activity and the organizations that you are, let's say, representing, what we discussed, let's say, before, you also have an idea to go global, like the really go global, open to the new markets, like, the GCC, European and US. So as a startup, what startups may looking for going global, let's say, what kind of support they may need, especially agriculture focused startups? Dr. Masuka, you are muted.
Zimbabwe, the biggest problem is access to capital and affordable capital that is appropriately tenured to the risk that agriculture entails. So if we can get support for that, then certainly that would really assist all these companies. The markets themselves is also an aspect that we need new markets. And I know that there are companies that are exploring the GCC market, and hopefully they will be able to break into those markets and ensure that product is supplied into that. So it's markets, it's investment that we are looking at.
All right. Okay. Jerry, hopefully you're back. I saw that you had some internet issue. We were discussing about, the different go-to-global strategies. Like number one, of course, is digitalization. The second important thing that we figure out is the new way of building the relation, like the digital relation these days is something very new with the customer, or let's say with the investor. What strategy you choose for your organization, let's say? Of course, probably digital, but have you done anything else, let's say, during this pandemic things in changing your strategy?
Yes, definitely. First, we have about 33% of our customers that coming in person to make payment because they are underbanked and there is no banking for them. So for them not to get out of their area, we could develop the application by text that they can make the payment by text by providing even different variety of the ways that they can transfer the money. So they very secure way. We texting to them, they texting the code back, and that code give them a barcode, which they can go to the local supermarket, they go anyway, and part of their purchase of the supermarket, they can make the payment through there. That's one thing. Secondly, we work out on the platform of the e-commerce to make it way much better, and each reason, there's no reason for them to come to location anymore because the payment plan is in the part of the basket. So when they develop a basket of things, they can see, okay, this one going to be $1 per month additional, this is going to be $5 per month. And then until they get to the point, they say, okay, I can afford $50 per month for my total purchase. And from there, internally, we take care of them as far as the financing. The third part that we get to help this community is we build a learning machine. So decisions have to be very fast because people online, they don't have patience. So it has to be really fast and have to make the decision. Now we're talking about community that they do not have records in banks, the community that don't have scoring system in the United States. There's three main scoring companies that we do not need to use them because we build out of the 2.5 million people that we financed in the past in the history of 40 years. We took all that data and build a learning machine that learn all that data and spit out any customer, even if it's no record at all, within 5 minutes, we can predict their behavior. We can predict payment, how many months a day we can give them, how much money total we can give them loan. So all those things is part of the issue of the pandemic that we had forced us to go way fast steps ahead and create everything online. And that's this is something international. We don't need just to do it in California. We can go anywhere around the world with that.
This is actually, I see one question from the audience, like, is it a good idea for startups to go globalize during this time? What Jerry, do you think? Like, for you, is it a good time to go global?
I think for me it's an excellent time because this is the time that this community needs financial help. And this is the time that, we force ourselves to build all those technology that can work anywhere around the world. With little adjustment, we can work it out in anywhere that they are immigrant or expat. We can practically put that equipment there, the system there, and make it up. And not only that, there are call centers. They're already international. They are in few countries, and they can keep to work 24 hours to service the community.
All right. And probably also, like, across the globe, we can see a big impact of the COVID on unemployment. And this is, let's say, the second question. Unemployment is direct consequences from the economic impact from COVID, affecting everyone globally, actually. So how startup, let's say, like yours, let's say the fintech who's dealing with the low-income people or even those who lost their job, do you see like their specific way to support in this difficult time to give, for example, the access to some money?
Yes. You see, the situation is not most government. I mean, I know that California and US came up with a lot of programs for this community. Still, there's a lot of jobs they're not working, but they having a lot of money being moved to them. They need financial need. They probably need the financing that we provide. We see the request. Our demand right now went up at least 30% compared to before the pandemic. So there is a need, and that need is going to be there. So the unemployment issue here is not as bad. We're talking about, let's say, 14%, but you have the rest. Yes, they're working. They have jobs. Even that 14%, they're receiving all the government help that can help. I'm sure that similar situation happening globally. It's not that everybody losing their job. And beside that, I'm sure that people are going to look after the pandemic really to go and build up their life. There's going to be a lot of opportunity after the pandemic that people are going to be liking to go out again and build again and redo their homes and so on.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. I see one more interesting question, like what are the tools that a startup needs to capitalize on during the time? And I feel like, and my question would be to Barbara this time, social media tools these days, now or after, let's say, pandemic, how can startups, let's say, take a benefits of using a social media in this new digital relations that we need to build this time to grow the business? We know that your organization adjusts the strategy, but how can companies like yours and the tools like yours support others?
Well, I think that first of all tools that help us to communicate and help us to share information can be a great help. I can't imagine lead a company like ours without vast majority of tools that we are using. So for example, for internal communication, we use Workplace, which is basically a tool from Facebook that looks and works exactly same as Facebook groups and Facebook Messenger, but it has been created for companies. Good tool with good visibility for video conferencing, and everything that helps with automating your processes. And also, I think the most important part of it, making people collaborate together. Because at the end of the day, it depends on the industry. I think that collaboration is a must in each industry, and only together, only in teams, we can come up with good solutions and create great ideas that we are discussing. Because one thing is the idea, and second thing is development. And I think that it's super important to collaborate, and it's super important also to keep the team spirit. And I think it's super challenging nowadays. It can be super challenging if we won't be able to be in touch. So whatever tools you can implement to make people collaborate and make people feeling as if they met can help a lot, because it's a way how we can maintain and improve our relations. I can share some tools we are using. So for example, for collaboration, besides Google Docs and Google Drive, we also use Asana, which is, in my opinion, very good tool for project management. We also use Pipedrive as CRM, typical for B2B business CRM, and Messenger, Workplace Messenger to stay connected. Zoom, actually, we use mostly because of MENA region, because many other platforms didn't work in MENA region that well.
Yes.
So that's why we chose Zoom, actually. And of course, it doesn't mean that these are the best. These are the best for us, and everyone needs to find the best for themselves. Many companies, and it depends on the activities that are being led by organizations, but I think it's very important what we choose and the rules we also set in place to make it working well. So for example, once we started all working remotely, we made a rule that you need to have turn off camera on companies meetings, not because anyone wants to control if you're working or not, but because I think that it's a completely way of expressing what do you want to say and how you want to, what you want to express if you see each other and not only hear the voice. So I think it's also very, very important how well we use the tools. And I also think that there are more and more tools on the market, and for each process almost you can find a tool. But at the end of the day, it's also important to not to overwhelm people with technology too, because many people were also complaining that entire day sitting at the Zoom meetings, it's also tiring. It's a different way of getting tired, but it's also tiring. So it's good also to keep some support for that and be aware that the technology is very helpful and can keep us connected, but also can be tiring. So to onboard people and to set up procedures and in a way that it's good for everyone.
All right. So what we see, like the startups has to change no matter what. The strategy is changing, the way of collaboration is changing, way of building the relation is changing. So Helen, how can we secure startups, let's say, from the legal perspective, because those changes are so fast these days. Let's say every week things are changing, and the legal actions needs to be as fast as all those changes, right? So what would be your advice from the legal perspective?
So I will answer that with the premise that the way we think of things is really important, and having trained startups, in Silicon Valley and also in other countries, it's very easy to think, okay, I need to do this on a shoestring. This is how startups usually think. But with the Silicon Valley mentality from Singularity University, where I studied, having an abundance mindset is really, really important. So for example, when you prepare your development, you think, okay, I'm going to, trial this. It's going to be, something I might pivot. Think big. Think much bigger than you can imagine. So rather than saying, okay, if I get 20 customers, I'll be very happy. That may not be the best, a recipe for success. But if you think 200, 2,000, 20,000, 2 million, the bigger you think, the more capacity you have to ask for help, to ask for resources, and also to get collaboration opportunities. So what I actually gather from this is when people think, okay, COVID-19, I need to think small, I need to save money, that's one way of doing and going through COVID-19 as your story. I tell people, how would you like to talk about COVID-19 to your grandkids, right? Or you could say, you know what, I took the time to think, I took the time for myself to get creative, to do some art, to do some meditation. And I thought, yes, there is a gap in the market that I can create for myself. I'll give you an example. I have one contact. He used to develop face masks in China. Just before COVID-19, he stopped production. Was that a good move or a bad? Had he continued with his business, he would be a billionaire before all the government constraints and the restrictions and all that. And that would have been a different story as a startup. So timing is important, planning is important, and particularly in times of uncertainty, I think we open ourselves up to all possibilities. So I think the takeaway from the talks of all is that we allow ourselves to go a bit crazy in terms of ideas, in terms of suggestions. And I think for the audience here, there's been many great ideas, and the next thing is action. There's no point listening to all these great speakers and not do anything afterwards. Contact us, talk to us, say, hey, I want to collaborate with you, I want to talk to you, and that's where the magic happens. So I think ideas is a stage 1, action is stage 2, and then you let the magic happen, because when there is genuine collaboration and concept of collaboration, legs will grow and businesses will flourish. And so I would love to, from my angle, end with that.
Thank you, Ms. Helen. Unfortunately, Mr. Marcin, you're running out of time. I think you can ask.
Can we just summarize, or it's really run out of time?
You can ask them to have a one word.
All right, I will take 3 if I can, please. So thank you so much, Helen. So let me quickly finalize what I learned, let's say, today. So first of all, like the close future is somehow unpredictable. This is what we know. There's no way that the world will look exactly the same after, if any after will be, because we are now in the new world era, in the new order, and the digitalization comes faster than we expected. There are, of course, the industries that are running a little bit faster than before, like the e-commerces, fintech solutions, and few others that we discussed, like, for example, maybe real estate. On the other hand, the businesses or startups, they are still looking to go global, and we all agree that the go to global is one of the way to go through the recession and still be successfully. Of course, startups need funds, so they are looking for the investors, and those investors are there. And the funds, what I know, are available even through the private offices or even through the private equities and other investors. So it's the time for those who are brave and who can be flexible and agile enough to change the strategy of the organization. Am I right? And now I'd like to ask everyone to, let's say, the short summary from all of you. Barbara, what do you think?
I think it's a time, as you said, of great opportunities if we use it smart, and if we think how we can use the technology to solve real people's problem, and how we can make people feel more connected and answer the real humans' needs. So if we find a way to use technology for human needs and for our humans' nature, not to try to neglect it, I think this is something we need for today's nowadays.
Thank you so much. Miroslav, what do you think? As a last word.
Yeah, I fully agree. I'm a firm believer that, you know, in the greatest, let's say, chaos, right, that lies also the greatest opportunity, because exactly what you said, you know, everyone is kind of, let's say, disrupted in a way, right? And that's it, you know, if you're focused and if you have the right strategy, you can definitely, you know, kind of switch gears and really leapfrog players that have been there.
All right, Jerry, so should we go global as a startups? Mike?
Sorry, microphone off.
Yes.
Yes, we're definitely planning to come to the GCC. We're building all the tools to work over there and to do the adjustment needed. We're looking for a lot of investment, but I'm sure that's going to come with time. We also know that it's a great opportunity created by this latest condition of the corona. And we are trying to cut using technology as much as possible to cut expenses and to cut overhead. And that's possible. We've done a lot of it.
All right.
And we're going to keep doing it.
Helen, last summary from your side, from the Earth or also from the space?
Okay, energy, guys. Stay positive, stay healthy. You know, with the right mindset, right attitude, you can do business anywhere on Earth or in outer space. Thank you.
All right. So I'd like to, at the end, thank you to Annual Investment Meeting for having us here for the discussion. I'd like also to thank to the private office of Sheikh Ahmed bin Faisal Al Qassimi. And I was really happy to see all the chats and the questions that were running. So the subject is really hot and the people like to discuss all those things. Unfortunately, the time is end and we need to finish. So once again, thank you also all of you, my friends, panelists, that you share your experience and we were able to have a really great discussion. So like Helen said, stay safe. But go global, definitely go global these days. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay. Thank you so much. Very, very interesting and inspiring session. Thank you, Mr. Marcin, and thank you to all our amazing speakers for joining us today and sharing their thoughts and expertise with us. I would like to thank once again our multilateral partner, Islamic Corporation, for the development of the private sector for sponsoring today's webinar. I would also like to thank our audience for joining us and sharing their questions. And the link to today's webinar video and presentation will be sent to you via email. And we are also conducting a short survey to get your feedback on today's webinar. So the link to the survey will be shared via chat and via email. Please do visit our website, www.aimcongress.com/webinars, to stay up to date to our upcoming webinars. Also follow us on our social media channels to keep yourself updated. Thank you very much, speakers and Mr. Marcin, and thank you all once again. We look forward to seeing you soon. Bye for now.
Thank you so much. have you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.